you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Here, take the bomb.
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of the Peasants Perspective. Yes. So glad you guys made it. I slept on my back last night, and so I snored. When I do that, on my back, I snore. And I woke up this morning with like the back of my throat just completely swollen. So I apologize if I sound a little bit funny. I sound funny to myself in the headphones here. So I don't know. We'll see. All right, you guys, I know why you show up bright and early. All two of you. Come on, let's load into the chat. What's going on?
I wonder if what's his name, Rush Limbaugh, ever like took special precautions in order to ensure that his voice was, you know, that golden whatever
EIB microphone. I bet he did. I was
actually thinking about somebody else that I heard that had insured their hands because they were so important to their work.
Oh yeah.
I was like, what? Maybe Taylor needs to insure his voice.
Insure my voice. Something like that. Do you make money with your hands or do you make money with your mouth? That's you gotta ask yourself. All right, I know why you guys piled in bright and early. You pile in for the simultaneous sip. Carlitos, he finally made it. This might be the longest delay we've had in a long time for people jumping into the chats. Carlitos, good morning. Glad you made it. I know why you guys show up bright and early. Pony Boy, he's here. Good morning. Good morning. I am pimping for chats this week. We've got a couple more days left and need at least 2 more chatters. So if you're
unfortunately, Pony Boy and Carlitos aren't going to help us out.
Yeah, you guys are on the first of the month to get your. But if you're a regular listener and you're streaming, please jump into the chats if you haven't done so this month.
We appreciate you guys.
Pray the Rosary daily. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. Glad you made it. Okay. It's time for the simultaneous sip. And all you need for that is a cup or a mug or a glass of tankard, a chalice, a stein, a canteen, jug or flask, a vessel of any kind. And fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure of the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better, the simultaneous sip. And it starts right now.
And Schumer's lost his way. He's become essentially a Palestinian. I think it's the greatest transformation of a political position I've ever seen. Chuck Schumer, who was a strong supporter of Israel, and he's become 100% Palestinian. In fact, I've asked for a beautiful, beautiful silk outfit to be sent in the Palestinian tradition. I'm going to send it to him as a birthday present. Now, it's the greatest transformation of a political ideology I've ever seen. Chuck Schumer is Jewish, and he was a strong supporter of Israel. Not that strong, because he let the Obama, even though he was supposed to.
Chuck Schumer, who is become a Palestinian. It's the greatest transformation in history. I have him a silk suit made in the Palestinian tradition sent to him. Oh my goodness. I'm telling you, in 20 or 30 years, we're going to be reading a book of quotes from Donald Trump. And it's going to be like, chase your dreams, never ever give up. You know, the moon is our future. And then you're going to turn the page. It's going to be like, Chuck Schumer's a Palestinian. It's so funny. Oh, it's great. Fraser says online, but not in Boise. John Attacker sent you a message in the car watching Peasants Perspective. We are live in a Tesla right now. The Tesla.
That'd be one of those books where it had the little swatch of silk that you could rub.
Yeah. Pony Boy says, was it Gavin Newsom that insured his hands? You'd think that it would be. We've got these forest fires all over the place. Yes. Gavin Newsom insuring his hands. Donald Trump also had another good crack up yesterday. He explained what the Democrats are.
And all Democrats, Democrats, they want to lose the war because they're stupid. That's why we call them Democrats, I no longer use the E. I've changed the E into a U. We call them Democrats. They're dumb.
telling you, the book of quotes is going to be an absolute banger. I don't call them Democrats anymore. They're Democrats. I've taken out the E.
That's going to be in the alphabet book.
It's going
for
to be
youngins.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Trump also gave a speech yesterday, which was really a good one. He kicked off the 250-year celebration with the what do they call it? The state fair celebration. Everybody's still trying to figure out what state it is that the fair is. It's the federal government, I guess. But anyways, Donald Trump gave a good little speech, and he started off this way, hearkening back to the Declaration of Independence. And unfortunately, this is something that we don't hear from our politicians enough.
In 1776, our founding fathers met in Philadelphia and changed the world forever and ever with a thing called the Declaration of Independence. They proclaimed the eternal truth that we are endowed by our Creator with the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We all made, and you know that, free and equal by the hand of Almighty God. Those timeless American principles did not just win a revolution, but they built us into the greatest, strongest, and most exceptional nation the world has ever known.
It's nice to hear a president talking like that. You know, we've gone quite a few years where you've had people like Joe Biden saying, you know, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created in the image of, you don't know, the thing. The other thing Donald Trump says here is something that I find interesting, trying to see a little bit of the signal through the noise and trying to understand what is the operating system that our president and this administration run by. And I think this is just a little bit of a window into the mindset these guys have.
But just like those patriots of 1776, over the past 17 months, we have taken power back from the far-off political class. They're trying to gain it back, but it's not going to happen. We have reclaimed our sovereignty, regained our liberty, restored our prosperity, and we have saved our country. In all things, we're once again putting a thing called America first.
That, I think, is an interesting insight, right? We have retaken our sovereignty from the politicians, essentially, right? The embedded politicians. And I just think that that is a real window into the modus operandi of this administration. Understanding that there is, in fact, a divide between the people of this country and the people in the nation. And when we say the people in the nation, oftentimes you can almost narrow it down to the employees, the bureaucrats, the people that are on the dole from the nation, you know, the recipients allegedly of taxpayer funds, and that there's a big divide there. And that Donald Trump's administration is coming in and trying to restore the power to the people, which makes sense why, as Donald Trump is doing that, he gets so much pushback from the machine, from the institution, from the uniparty politicians and whatnot, right? So John Solomon, as you know, a week ago, put out the little piece saying that he's leaving being the editor-in-chief for Just the News so he could go work as a temporary government employee to help out the director of national intelligence get a bunch of information released.
Okay.
So he's been over there for a couple days now, and he came on to Steve Bannon's show, War Room, and reported just a little bit about what they've been finding.
It's literally his testimony to the Senate Intelligence Committee. By the way, it takes like 5 seconds to vote this out, right? And if not, tell the prosecutors, I can't get the votes, and subpoena me, and then let's bring it into the courts. That's what they did with Richard Nixon during Watergate and the Watergate Committee. You're right. The Intelligence Committee is ground zero for what was a decade and perhaps a decade and a half, going all the way back to the early Obama years, of a weaponization of intelligence, of law enforcement. And I also think when we're done with the project I'm working on and what others who are working on, great journalists are working on right now, it's also ground zero for the erosion of our liberties, the erosion of our privacy. There are programs all across the government, nothing I've seen yet, but I intend to find it. But as a journalist, I have been able to confirm there are programs that the CIA and others gobble up Americans' records. It isn't just the NSA that's gobbling up programs. We have a Fourth Amendment that has more holes in it than the Alamo after the shootout. We don't have a Justice Department until recently that try to enforce the Fourth Amendment or the Second Amendment or the First Amendment. And I think the intelligence community is at the heart of censorship, weaponization, invasion of privacy. And John Brennan was the grand maestro. He was the John L. Williams of that operation, that orchestra. And we can't fix it until we fully expose it. So my goal is just to help the president and some very good people in the intelligence community who want to get it out, tell a story, and then the policymakers and the president and the cabinet secretaries can fix it. And I just want to say thank you to President Trump for opening the door to this. It's something that's long been needed. He did it. He gave a great team that's working with us. And early on, I wanted to shout out Director Ratcliffe, Director Patel, and Director Pulte, who just got started, but has been more helpful than Tulsi Gabbard was for months in my quest to get information. They're all taking this seriously. And I think we're going to have some bombshell revelations in the next few weeks that will just show you how much the intelligence community kept from the American people and intruded on the American people's rights.
It'll be really interesting to see if they release information that showed that the intelligence community was going after the little guy. Right. It's one thing when it's like, oh, they covered up COVID. That's this huge thing. There's millions, if not billions of dollars involved. But what I'm really interested in is, did they come after the little guy, the guy that we don't know his name? You know, was there someone out there that was just way too influential of a pastor and they came and targeted him? I'm interested
like Tina Peters?
Tina Peters. You know, again, sometimes us little guys get involved in things that are way bigger than we are, right? Like me going to January 6th. Suddenly, I'm not just some online guy yelling to 60 people in an audience.
Right.
You know, all of a sudden.
And me is just some guy in Washington should never even know Tina Peters' name.
Yeah, exactly. So we inject ourselves into these massive stories. But then sometimes it's like, they just came after that guy that went to the school board. That's not injecting yourself in a big story. That's trying to protect your daughter at a local school, right? It's like, it shouldn't, but
it should be happening in every town in America.
Yeah. And then you've got Trump, you know, basically saying we've reclaimed our sovereignty. It's really interesting that Pulte, in just a matter of days, is being called out as having been more helpful than Tulsi Gabbard. Now, reports vary, but Pulte came in and fired between 50 and up to 400 people in intelligence. So that's quite a few people. Apparently, it's a big clean out at the counterintelligence division. What is counterintelligence? These are the spies that are supposed to find the spies. Okay. Now, a lot of times the spies that are supposed to find the spies end up on assignments creating spies or creating counterintelligence situations. It's the counterintelligence guys that went out and found these UFC pipe bomb plotters.
And I'm not saying that they're all double agents, but that's where double agents come from.
That's where double agents come from. That's right. So one of the things we talk about, anytime we talk about sovereignty and we talk about taking back our ability to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, the conversation necessarily, if we're to take it seriously, needs to involve the discussion of money. Right? Going all the way back to Thomas Jefferson. He says, if the American people ever allow the banks to take over issuance of the currency, that your children will wake up homeless on the land that their conquerors conquered. Because first by deflation and then by deflation, they will rob you of everything you've ever earned. And certain states have put it, and obviously our whole nation runs off the dollar system. And the United States right now is trying to shore up the dollar, strengthen the dollar. We're going to hear a little bit later today about how Venezuela and Iran now are both going to peg their currencies to the dollar, which is good news, which is good news, right? This is good news. It's going to mop up some of that liquidity. Apparently, we don't have to import Venezuela here to mop up the liquidity. We can just give them the dollars there to mop up the liquidity. But nonetheless, having said that, Illinois made what many are considering a very deep state skeezy move, right? Because your sovereignty kind of begins and ends with your ability to control your labor and to profit from that labor. So when you don't have control of the money, it creates a problem. And for many Americans, we're living an American nightmare rather than American dream. And a lot of it centers around the money. Well, Bitcoin is a way out of that. Obviously, we've talked a lot about this on this show. And the state of Illinois put a bill in the middle of the night. It was part of a larger bill, but they put a provision in there that taxed your cryptocurrency holdings. They would tax you for the money you had on an exchange. So 2% annually was just going to, or 0.2%, excuse me, just for a sitting balance. If you transferred that balance from one wallet to another wallet, you owed 0.2%.
Okay.
If you made a purchase, you owed 0.2%. Or if you made a sale of cryptocurrency, you would owe 0.2%.
So in the Ethernet world, how would Illinois even know?
Essentially, they were taxing what you have, what you move, what you buy, and what you sell.
But it sounds like you have to declare it.
Probably. And you know, the way it works is once they have a tax due, they create a surveillance system to try to, you know, look at it. Yeah. Well, this bill got snuck in the middle of the night, and it received a lot of backlash because it was never debated on. It was never even presented in committee. It literally got stuck onto the bill at 4 a.m.
Sounds like a local BLA ordinance.
Yep. So one of the Chicago House of Representatives member has already introduced a bill to repeal this bill.
John Cabello just introduced a bill to repeal the digital asset tax. It comes as crypto industry leaders are criticizing the 0.2% tax that will be imposed on all digital transactions in Illinois next year. This tax was introduced just hours before state lawmakers passed the $56 billion state budget at 4:13 in the morning. One of the industry leaders speaking out is Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase. According to his post on X, Coinbase has over 1.5 million customers in Illinois. He wrote, quote, "This Illinois law is remarkably bad. It will end up hurting the state, kill jobs, and push innovation out of the state." And now these local and national leaders are encouraging residents to tell their local reps to repeal it. And in fact, I have Representative Cabello who's joining us. He's doing just that with this legislation. We're going to talk about that tax with him. And then also Ji-Hoon Kim, who is the CEO of the Crypto Council for Innovation. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Representative Cabello, let me start with you. Walk us through how you feel this would be pushed through. I mean, at this point in time, it hasn't even been enacted, but you're calling for it to be repealed.
Correct. So what my legislation does is repealing what was never talked about in a committee, was never discussed, never saw the light of day. It was put into a revenue package that was passed in the dark of night. So if it's that good of an idea, we should have a full committee hearing on it. We should allow the public to come in, tell us what their thoughts are on this type of a piece of legislation, and have some sort of sunlight on this stuff. I mean, we can't continue to tax our way out of the problems that we have. So, Illinois already struggles to attract and retain businesses. Instead of creating an environment that encourages innovation and investment, this digital asset transaction tax sends the opposite message.
That's exactly right. Digital assets, and specifically Bitcoin, are a way for you to reclaim your sovereignty and your freedom and take control from the government and not participate in things like forever wars and stuff like that. Over in the chats, Shantini joined us. Morning, folks. Glad you made it. Yeah. So this next clip comes from a show that I quite enjoy. It's called Simply Bitcoin. It's a couple young guys. I think it's Nico and OT or something like that. Anyways, these guys talk Bitcoin news every day. And he has this good little bit here where he talks about control of money and how the system is set up where they force you to use their money. And unfortunately, it's kind of a rigged game.
No kidding.
Yeah. When Donald Trump says we've reclaimed our sovereignty, again, any serious conversation about that has to address the money. Because this is the number one way that the average American loses their sovereignty.
Separation of money and state. That is the ultimate goal. That is the ultimate mission of Bitcoin, right? This is what Satoshi envisioned. This is what all of us have envisioned. And it looks like we got a little bit of a detour. But again, in the separation of money and state, if a big portion of the state's revenue comes from printing money itself, you don't think that they would react? You don't think that they would use the heavy hand of government to, tax, quote unquote, peer-to-peer transactions? In the EU, they're basically making any peer-to-peer transaction over $10,000 illegal, right? So again, all of this is to keep you within the pen. All of this is to keep you within the fiat system. That is the goal. That's what they intend to do. That's what they're doing. And if you think that these attacks will stop, I got a bridge to sell you. This is going to continue to happen. This is going to continue to accelerate. We lived through the separation of information and the state. That was when they tried to censor social media. That was when the Twitter files got released. The Twitter files were basically claiming that, hey, there was pressure from the United States government on social media platforms to censor certain type of information blatantly against the First Amendment. Now we're in the next phase. The next phase is the separation of money and state. And in the separation of money and state, things are going to get a little bit nastier. And the reason things are going to get nastier is because governments get a tremendous amount of power from being able to issue their own currencies and being able to control the money flows. And ultimately, they can use all the scary language. It's for the kids. It's for your own safety. But ultimately, it comes down to them wanting the unique ability of being able to create money for free that everyone else has to work for. So we can give you guys all the data. We can give you guys all the information. VPN ban, tax on every Bitcoin / crypto transaction, right? But ultimately, it comes down to one simple theme. They want to keep their control over money. And my question for you is, as a sovereign individual, as if you live in the United States, is that truly freedom? If the government gets to choose what money you use, is that freedom? And then it's not only the government choosing what money you use, the money that you use has baked in inflation. So it's like they're literally forcing you to use a money that is designed to lose purchasing power. If that is not a new form of slavery, I don't know what else is. And that's the key point here. So we have to pay attention to these things. They're going to continue to develop. And then I think the following question, the natural question to that is, how do you fight it? How do you fight against that? The way that you fight against that is you stop paying attention to all the bells and whistles. You stop paying attention to TradFi, and you focus on one thing: buying Bitcoin, earning Bitcoin, mining Bitcoin, and putting that Bitcoin into self-custody. If enough of us do that, we win. That's it. Full stop. Bitcoin ultimately is designed to be used peer-to-peer. It is not designed to be used via a custodian. And I think this is the lesson that we all forgot this previous cycle.
I think a lot of people don't understand Bitcoin's premise. It's to take sovereignty back, right? It's to be able to transact without government permission and not be sucked into whatever monetary system that they want to force you to use, of which all of them are inflating away by the government printer, right? Now, it is good for me as a peasant in the United States for the dollar to be strong. It is generally a good thing. There are some problems with that, right? When we do have prices that go higher and higher, it's hard to earn those dollars to keep up with rising prices, right? Because asset prices will go up with global liquidity. Wages, that's a matter of private bargain. And so if you're not good at raising your wages as they're printing money, eventually you get behind the curve, which is where the entire millennial generation finds themselves. They're so far behind the curve on wages, they can't afford assets like single family residence.
Wages go up about as fast as gas prices come down.
Yeah, exactly. There's an investigation into that one. TIFF time. Hi, guys. Glad you made it. So in addition with this, we also, right, as they turn on the money printer and more people use the dollar. So this is key. As more nations use the dollar, right, there has to be more money printed to go and get absorbed by those people. So that is, again, Donald Trump has done some really incredible things. He's opened up new markets. Like I remember last year, one of the trade deals we did, he opened up, I think it was Indonesia, 100 million people. Just all of a sudden now they're going to be.
What I was going to say is maybe you just have to pick the right country to inject your money into.
Yes, pick the right country to inject your money into. Well, Iran has 90 million people. Venezuela's like 35, 40 million people.
Okay.
And Scott Bessent just said both of those nations are now going to reap the rewards of being on the dollar.
Dollar dominance is essential, and everything President Trump is doing here is, if you look, the new Venezuela is invoicing in dollars. They're coming back onto the dollar system. They've been sanctioned. They were not allowed to translate or to transact in dollars. And now the dollar is going to be the centerpiece of their trade. They were selling discounted oil to China and not getting dollars. We're seeing in the Iranian negotiations, the Iranians will be invoicing in dollars. So everything we are doing is pushing the dollar back. It's never left as the centerpiece for the global currency system, but we're reinforcing it. I would anticipate when the Russia-Ukraine conflict ends, that Russia will want to come back in the dollar system because, again, the dollar, it's our liquidity, it's our capital markets, it's the depth and breadth. Everyone wants to be here. And I think many times, the great thing about the United States is we course correct when we go too far one way or the other. And I think we should not be shy about flexing where we have advantages, and where we have advantages, share with our allies and push back on those who are not aligned with us. Dollar dominance.
Just like we are team player ones in the space, because it creates a lot of jobs for Americans, and a lot of factories, and a lot of money gets sucked up into the space race. We're also team player one for the American dollar. I mean, of course, we want to have the American dollar used all over the place. But when I listen to what Scott Bessent said there, what I hear is they're buying an additional season, right? They're buying some time for dollar dominance by bringing on Iran and Venezuela. These are two countries that very recently were floating the idea of basically doing everything through Bitcoin. But what has happened here? Through the force of military might.
I don't know if we convinced them that it was economically the right responsible thing to do.
Yeah, I don't know if they're like, yes, I want to get on that that melting ice cube called the dollar.
Yeah.
No, we are forcing them to take it at the barrel of a gun. So on one hand, as American countrymen, I'm like, oh yeah, I love it that my national currency is the dominant currency around the world. But you have to take a step back and recognize we're forcing these countries to use it at the barrel of a gun. Literally.
And I really like this personally, but also, isn't this kind of like a form of slavery? And aren't this?
Yes, yes, it is.
Aren't we kind of like the baddies?
Yes, this is why it's like the empire keeps growing.
I know, and it's like, dang it, I kind of like that, but damn.
Yeah. Now to remember, there's the Bitcoin system, which is internet gold, and then you have cryptocurrencies. These are internet fiats. So there's an interesting time thing happening here. Cryptocurrency, that entire genre, allows very fast transactions, right? You don't require Fedwire. You don't require overnight settlement. You're not going to have banks charge, earning interest while your money is in transit. So there's a huge advantage to go onto cryptocurrency rails, right? I know Ripple likes it. We're going to be the rails of the banking system. Yeah, good luck, Ripple. But the point is, it's like, yes, the banking system is going to be a lot of tokens, stable coins. I mean, this happened. This was a huge benefit to the US dollar. The stablecoin market was able to open up in places like Nigeria, where their national currency is so bad, nobody wants it. The locals won't
not to
use it.
derail your thought, but I was just thinking about what is our bond rating, I guess, because you know how that's taken a hit, and like, what's the other metric they use to determine, how strong the dollar is in the world? Some of those metrics have taken hits in the past. I wonder how they're doing, and are they recovering, or are we just going full baddie on this situation?
I think we're just trying to be the tallest midget in the room.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Your credit rating's the best if you're at least paying your debt. Right? I mean, so just keep
as long as you're coupled with the right currency.
Yeah. So there's a timing thing happening here. As the United States flexes its muscle around the world and reestablishes itself as, we want you to transact with the dollar. They're going to have to keep up with the changing technology. Even a country that's willing to take the dollar as its reserve currency, they would sure like transactions to settle faster and smarter. And so they're going to adopt the cryptocurrency rails, which is another reason why, just like everything, there's a story being told here. The Clarity Act is coming into place. The Clarity Act is going to make it so stable coins and cryptocurrencies in general have a set of guidelines, clarity, and the rules, so that banks and developers and things like that know what the United States is going to consider as kosher as to how to build these cryptocurrency.
Well, this is really important, this is important for everybody, because you know, in permitting, for example, you need a certain amount of certainty that a transaction is going to occur a certain way. And if you don't have the confidence that those things can happen, then the transactions won't happen. So this is setting up the confidence rails for people to be able to transact in this stuff.
Exactly. And it also does some other things, like it secures our right to private custody of Bitcoin, and that they can't get in the middle of peer-to-peer transactions. So there is some good stuff in there for we, the users, right? The people who want to use Bitcoin, but it also creates a huge opening for banks and whatnot to spread the control grid via the cryptocurrencies.
It's an opportunity for sure.
Different technologies. So this is Cynthia Loomis saying, listen, the Clarity Act will be on the floor of the Senate in July.
But we've been working through thousands of hours in negotiating, thousands. And we're finally to the point where we're going to put out a text over the July 4th and give people one last really thorough look at the bill. And then we're moving in July. But we've been working.
That is exciting. We're moving in July. I expect all cryptocurrencies, and I expect Bitcoin especially, to take a pretty big bump when that happens, because it is institutionalizing it, and banks will be able to hold Bitcoin on their balance sheets without actually having to hold cash 10 times that amount.
Well, it will also signal to the public, which will drive volume.
Yeah. BlackRock put out their investment guidelines today, and they were they suggested that all of their clients have 2% of their asset or balance sheet in Bitcoin. It's a pretty big deal. Now, as we move into space, and again, you know, sorry, Carlitos, I might be a space tart, I don't know, or globe tart as they call it. But as we move into space, there's a company that just launched the first NVIDIA-backed star cloud. They announced that they will soon become the first company to mine Bitcoin in space.
Whoa.
This is a pretty big deal. Take a listen to this.
This moment right here,
Star Cloud 1 separation confirmed,
could represent the birth of an entirely new industry, data centers in space.
The problem is that data centers take up a ton of space and they need a huge amount of energy. Enter Star Cloud.
This is the beginning of a future where most new data centers are being built in space.
They're starting small, but the goal is to build massive orbital data centers that will make computing more efficient and less of a burden on the limited resources down here on Earth.
I can see why it seems like a long shot to some people. To me, though, the reason for doing this is that the potential impact is absolutely massive. So even if you think there's a small percentage chance of it working, then it's worth taking this kind of risk.
Philip Johnston and his team at StarCloud recently made aerospace history when they launched a satellite into orbit carrying an NVIDIA H100 GPU.
This is the first time anybody's tried to launch data center grade terrestrial Earth-based GPUs into space. It's going to be the first of many.
While it's essentially a prototype, it's still 100 times more powerful than any computer that's ever operated in the vacuum of space. To find out how they went from an idea to launching a demo satellite in less than 2 years, we visited StarCloud's HQ in Redmond, Washington. Tell us about what StarCloud is working on.
We are building data centers in space, initially to provide GPU compute to other satellites, and then later to compete on energy cost, even with terrestrial data centers.
StarCloud's goal is to build the world's first orbital data centers, massive GPU clusters powered by constant solar energy to run AI compute at scale. Operating in a sun-synchronous orbit, they'll draw uninterrupted sunlight for energy, radiate heat into deep space, and run with zero fresh water and much lower carbon emissions than data centers down here on Earth. By taking the cloud off Earth, StarCloud can scale almost indefinitely, free from land, grid, and cooling limitations, and ultimately compete with the cost of the largest terrestrial data centers. Tell us more about how far along you are.
We started about a year and a half ago. We've designed, built, and tested our first satellite, and that will be the first satellite that will have an H100 from NVIDIA on board. The purpose of this is really to prove that our thermal management and radiation shielding techniques allow us to operate the state-of-the-art in space. We're going to be running a whole bunch of demonstration workloads on that. We'll be the first to run Gemini from Google on there. We'll be the first to do fine-tuning of model and training a model in space.
Why data centers in space? It seems like, people are still struggling to get the compute that we need here, building them on Earth. Like, Why is space going to be the next frontier for that?
Yeah, so we see a world where almost all data centers, anything that doesn't require very low latency, is operating in space, purely because of the constraints we're facing on energy terrestrially. And so we're building with a vision to build extremely large.
That's pretty interesting.
You know, I thought about this a long time ago. I was thinking about, it'd be really cool if we could have like a power station in space where you have like just huge solar nets and you just capturing all this radiation and then you beam it down to Earth with microwaves and everybody has free energy and it'd be great. And I was thinking about that as I'm watching this going, man, transferring just the data is way easier than transferring the energy. This is brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. What I love about it is, here's just a company, StarCloud, but they're going to be doing processing in space. And one of the things they said in their press release was they're going to compete with energy production on Earth. And how are they going to store the value of that energy production? It's going to be through Bitcoin. It's just one of those things. The more you get into it, you more realize, fix the money, fix the world. Right. The next thing we're going to, let me get to Carleets here. Carleet says, I'm not sure Trump signs the Clarity Act without the Save America Act. Yeah. I hope he doesn't. Even though I do want the Clarity Act, I hope he doesn't. We need the Save America Act more than anything else. Carleets, I just can't get there that we're evolved chimps on a spinning ball of water hurling through space. What if we're a spinning ball of water hurling through space, but it was the Anunnaki who fused the chimp's DNA and added some of their own? I mean, there's a lot of places we could go with this, right, Carleets? There's a lot of places we could go. Okay, speaking of spending an extreme, massive amount of money, the General Secretary of NATO, Mark Rutte, is very happy with what the United States did with Iran. In fact, Rutte says that Donald Trump is the leader of the free world and is doing what the leader of the free world should be doing.
A few things I want to share with the media, with you being here present, and it's about your leadership. First of all, about Iran. I really want to make clear how important it is what you are doing on Iran. This is, first of all, about the nuclear capability Iran was basically getting its hands on. And it would have been a threat to the region. It would have been a threat to the whole world. This is a country which is exporting chaos. It is exporting terrorism. And they were very near to getting their hands on the nuclear capability. You've seen last week with the G7, all the leaders in the G7 applauding the fact that this nuclear capability has been degraded. This is extremely important. And I just want to make this clear, because sometimes people think, why was this whole Iran thing going on? This is about security, about safety. This is the leader of the free world taking responsibility beyond the shores of the United States for the rest of the world. And this is what you did. I know there have been debates about whether your allies in Europe were with you enough. I just want to say one thing. He
says whether they were with you or not. And he says they were. Well, they're very happy because you're the leader of the free world. They're all wusses. Is basically what he's saying. Okay. Now he did come on to another topic, and this again, right? Just emphasizing the fact that the money is a big part of the problem here, and money plays into all of this. We went into Iran and we spent an incredible amount of money, but also one of Trump's agenda items has been getting the other nations that are a part of NATO to spend money. When we talk about
spend their money,
right? Yeah. Which is all backed by our money. So when we talk about defense spending, this is like one of the primary causes of inflation. The two main sources, the two biggest expense line items on our budget is what? Social services, Medicaid, Medicare, and defense spending.
I was going to say it was going to be interest.
Yeah, listen to this. No, that's the number one. We're just paying interest on all that.
Yeah.
But those are the reasons why we print money.
Right. If you stay here, I go over to these boards here, because I want to show you what this president was able to achieve. And I start with this chart. This chart is about the Trump trillion. The Trump trillion shows you the increase Europeans and Canadians are paying into defense since you took office in 2017. Trump 45 plus Trump 47. A total of extra spent by the Europeans and the Canadians of 1.2 trillion. When you look at the effect of Trump 47, so the isolated effect of the extra defense spending in 2025 and 2026, you see almost $140 billion extra spent nominal on defense by the Europeans and the Canadians. And also this year, you will again see an increase by about 120 billion, which brings a total in 2 years of over $250 billion. I can assure you, this is because of Russia, because of the threat. But I'm also absolutely convinced that you, being President of the United States, being consistently pushing for something which since Eisenhower has not been achieved, which is the Europeans equalizing their defense spending with the United States, this is your evidence. Then, when it comes to jobs, look here. In total, 195,000 jobs being supported by investments. Investments from European companies into the United States, 83,000 jobs supported by that. 112,000 jobs created by the fact that Europeans are massively, about half of all their defense spending when it comes to defense industrial output is spent in the United States. 112,000 jobs. Last year, they spent $54 billion on U.S. defense industrial output. There is now a order backlog of $300 billion. So $300 billion of defense spending from Europeans, buying this in the US over the next couple of years, which is already on the order book. Last year, 54 billion, a total now order book of 300 billion, totally almost 200,000. These are real jobs, real people, like you had yesterday when you spoke in Pennsylvania, the people behind you.
So there's a lot of things going on there, right? But let's hone in on the big top line number, $1 trillion. Where did that $1 trillion come from?
Well, according to Mr. NATO, it came from other countries.
I know. And where did they get the money? They borrowed it from us. We printed all that money. That is all printed money. He is describing the process of inflation. We print the money. We buy the goods. Some of that money to buy the goods goes into the labor and the jobs. He's describing the entire economic cycle of fiat money, all based on what? Defense spending. Bullets, missiles, tanks, planes, battleships, right? This game we play around the world that causes untold amount of suffering and chaos and death, all to do what? To prop up the dollar. And what are you doing to prop up the dollar? Printing more dollars. It's an endless cycle. This cycle of war, whether we like it or not, because it plays into human nature, right? But the incentives of the fiat system is that you just have to outspend your competitor. And that's really what it boils down to. And Trump is serious about defense spending. He had some of the defense contractors into the White House recently.
President Trump called key defense contractors to the White House, pressing them again to build munitions faster. The Iran war exposed major weaknesses in the U.S. weapons supply chain and depleted nearly half the stockpile of THAAD and Patriot missiles and Tomahawks, according to senior U.S. officials. The man overseeing the Pentagon's procurement effort is Deputy Secretary Stephen Feinberg, the former head of the private equity firm Cerberus Capital Management. In an effort to build weapons faster, Feinberg is widely reported to have steered contracts to Cerberus-owned companies. In a letter to the Pentagon, Senator Elizabeth Warren of the Armed Services Committee asked why so many contracts are linked to Feinberg's former company. Quote, "Your continuing financial relationships with Cerberus and that of your immediate family, as well as the fact that you have hired multiple key DoD staff with Cerberus ties, raises concerns about whether these actions are consistent with your ethics agreement. And these concerns are exacerbated by the fact that Cerberus-backed companies are profiting off of Golden Dome contracts." Golden Dome is the multi-billion-dollar proposed missile defense shield for the homeland. The Pentagon defended Feinberg, saying there is a multi-layered ethics framework in place, adding, quote, "There are no conflicts of interest with Cerberus. Deputy Secretary Feinberg, as with every DOW official, are in full compliance with all ethics laws and regulations. Any claims otherwise are false."
So I'm past the point of caring where they spend the money at this point. And I'm more on there's the point. They're spending a lot of money and they're dead serious about these defense contractors spending more of it and making more missiles.
Yeah, you're starting to feel like, Mom, put it back. We're not getting that. Put it back.
Put it back. Put it back put it back on the shelf. Get that out of the cart. But yet we just keep spending and spending. In fact, we want to spend so much money on defense that we're shaking, that we're leaving defense contractors shaking because of how big our orders are.
You have taken leadership. Last week, you signed the Defense Procurement Act. You made it possible for companies to work together to be able, therefore, to ramp up their defense production. You have been very harsh with them a couple of weeks ago. I had one of them over in my office. Yeah, it was really harsh. I had one of them over in my office. He was still trembling. One of the CEOs. And I said, this is good. This is exactly what we need. Because we need this extra defense output. This is important for Europe. When I point at all these jobs, of course, also many jobs being created in Europe and in Canada. But again, almost 200,000 here in the United States, supported by all these investments. But it is about defense industrial output. And this is also what the Ankara summit has to be about. The whole first day will be about defense industrial production, because we can spend as much as we want, but we need the interceptors, the missiles, we need the tanks, we need the artificial intelligence, etc., etc. And this is what you are doing.
We can literally spend as much as we want.
Have you ever
we
seen?
want to get something for it.
Have you ever seen Trump so quiet?
I know.
He's just sitting there like eating it up. He's like, man, this guy is great.
The Navy Secretary General's like, look at all the money he's spending. This is great. And Trump's like, I like spending money. Guys, the printer is on. Don't doubt it, right?
Yeah.
Even with the dollar dominance coming back into vogue, and even with Iran and Venezuela getting back on the dollar, and maybe Russia, guys, it's a fiat system, right? It's designed to eventually fail. It's designed to change your time preference for spending because it's inflating away. So you're incentivized to spend it now.
This kind of printing is the only way that we operate. I mean, it was not really ever going to happen a different way. What did you expect?
It wasn't going to happen a different way. Now, yesterday, Trump went over to the White House and actually met with the senators. And as he was doing this, he put out this post because there was a housing bill that was passed and it was ready to be signed by the president. It's all done by the House, all done by the Senate. And Trump canceled it. He said today's housing news conference and signing is hereby canceled until such time as we pass the desperately needed Save America Act, which I consider to be a national emergency. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. That national emergency line is a big deal. If Trump declares a national emergency, guess what happens? He can suspend the Constitution and say, we have to fix this. And he may very well use this tool. And the national emergencies, over at 1776 Live, we had a great course on the Trading with the Enemies Act, and it empowers presidents when they create national emergencies to literally do whatever they want. They actually become kings. They become emperors, quite literally.
I was just going to say, this is when everybody starts yelling kings, no kings.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the interesting thing about this is there is a national emergency over banking. Banking, right? Over the banking crisis during the Great Depression. They declared a national emergency and they literally took over the financial system. They took it away from the free market. The people of the United States, we became commercial enemies of the country.
So what do we think's happening now?
And now they're printing away and they're forcing you to use their money. It's the same story, same story. But Donald Trump went over to the White House or over to the Capitol building to meet with the senators. This is from Real America's Voice.
The commander-in-chief is literally just rolling out now in a motorcade that's it's got 30 cars in it with the beast. And he's heading for Capitol Hill for that luncheon with a group that's called the Senate Steering Committee. That is the conservative bloc of senators, roughly 25 conservative senators who get together, sort of like the Freedom Caucus or the Republican Study Committee on the House side. So the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, was not involved in this invitation. It wasn't cleared with him. I doubt he's even going to attend. Rick Scott, the senator from Florida, who challenged Thune for leadership at the beginning of this session, Rick Scott invited the president. And so this is a very interesting dynamic because the conservatives on Capitol Hill have been pushing for the Save America Act, and the Republican leadership, along with Democrats and their media allies, have been trying to block the Save America Act. The bill passed the House. All they need is the Senate to approve it, and then we're off to the races. The president today was supposed to sign a major housing bill. He said, I will not sign the housing legislation until I get the Save America Act, Terrence.
Some interesting storylines developing. Let me start here with Rick Scott of Florida inviting the president and not necessarily notifying Leader Thune. Do you see this as a first step of potentially pushing John Thune out?
Well, it doesn't do anything to help him, that's for sure. It basically says, hey, you're on notice, kid. The majority leader position is not in the Constitution. He is not in the chain of succession. That's why the president pro tempore succeeds after the Speaker of the House, not the majority leader. Is it a party position? 27 senators could oust Thune today at lunch. I don't know if it'll happen today, but I've never heard such talk and buzz about ousting a majority leader in the middle of a session in all my years of covering politics. You hear it all the time now and then in the House, but never like I'm hearing it now with John Thune.
And I'm not hearing that much of them wanting to replace John Thune. I feel like it's just a lot of like bot buzz, if you will. But nonetheless, the fact that they're even talking about it is, you know, significant that he doesn't have quite an iron control over the Senate, which is no surprise.
Yeah.
He can't get the Save America Act over the finish line. Trump responded to this directly that, you know, they asked, are you going to veto the bill? And he said no. Here's the thing. And Donald Trump mentions this, is he's been in real estate forever. He's made billions of dollars in real estate. And he just says, real simply, you want to fix real estate, lower interest rates, right? Nothing else is really going to matter. This bill is just more regulations to allegedly make it easier for people to buy homes. We all know that it's probably not going to do much of that at all. In fact, one of the things the bill doesn't do is close the door to illegal immigrants and people who are here illegally from buying houses. It actually kind of opens the door to them. So
yeah, I've never seen a process improvement for a permit that made it cost less. Never seen it.
No. So Trump just calls it out.
The leaders, because they want to cheat. Their policy is so bad, they're unelectable. About what? No, I said I'm not signing the housing bill. I want to see what happens. We said, look, the housing bill is housing. I made billions of dollars with housing. I know housing better than anybody, maybe anywhere. It's all about the interest rate. Lower the interest rates, you can have all the housing you want. You have to understand, I don't want to hurt people that own houses too. These people, for the first time in their lives, they have valuable houses. They become rich. I don't want to hurt them either. What you want to do is what's good for everyone, get the interest rates down. We have this numbskull that was the head of the Fed before, and he's a stupid person. And we call him too late because he was too late with the interest rates all the time. We need low interest rates. Low interest rates will solve everything. Will solve that. And despite that, we're doing well with housing.
And I completely agree with him. Low interest rates would fix it. And he ties it all back into the Save America Act. We have to get the Save America Act passed.
The Senate. Would you be open to a compromise measure that had provisions of the SAVE Act into a reconciliation?
Not really. No, the SAVE Act should be this compromise. It's voter ID, it's proof of citizenship, and it's also the mail-in ballots. We want mail-in ballots for the military if they're away. We want them for people that are ill or people that are in some form handicapped or have a hard time or people even that are on vacation. I'm open to that. But mail-in ballots, you have to vote because we have a lot of rigged elections.
And we should
And then we added in men in women's sports as a no-no. No men in women's sports and no transgender mutilization of our children. These are 99% issues, and we have to do it. We have to protect. Look at what's gone on in Los Angeles and California. The vote still hasn't been counted. What's it, 2 weeks now? It still hasn't been counted. And I don't know Spencer Pratt, but I watched him, and he was doing really nicely. All of a sudden, he's out. And I said he was going to be out because he was doing well. And then a week later, they started saying, oh, he's starting to lose favor. He's starting to lose. I said, they just rigged the election. And they were going to do that with Steve Hilton. He's a good man. And I asked the U.S. attorney to go look at their votes. And as soon as I did that, they announced that Steve Hilton would be a finalist. So, no, we have rigged elections. Now, in my case, I made it too big to rig. Remember the expression, too big to rig? But we have rigged, and we have to have voter ID. If we don't have voter ID and proof of citizenship, but basically it's the Save America Act.
He talks with such intensity around this topic. If he declares it a national emergency, it really does give him all the power to fix this however he needs to fix it. I mean, he can bypass the Senate and the House in 2 seconds. It puts the burden on them to overcome, you know, not only the 60 vote threshold to cancel the emergency, but they also have to then get over a presidential veto, which probably wouldn't happen. It might be the only way he gets it done. Tommy Tuberville got onto Fox News yesterday because in that little meeting with the senators, there were some fireworks that happened.
Save America Act is the number one thing that people want. They want fair elections. We just saw the nonsense in California, and we're seeing the nonsense of these communists taking over our country. And they're not socialists; they are communists. And so President Trump was exactly right. I'm proud of what he did today. He spoke up. He called people out. They had a very good conversation back and forth. But people need to be called out. If you're not going to vote for this country, my God, folks, we are in trouble. And President Trump needs help, and we're not giving him 100% the help that he needs.
So you talked about the number of ways that you could pass the SAVE Act. Can you elaborate on that? Is there any movement that would sort of take some pieces out of it that might get the thrust of voter ID across the finish line, Senator?
Yeah, that's a no-go. He's not going to take anything out of the Save America Act. What's in there needs to stay. We just talked about the avenues of the talking filibuster, or voting out the regular filibuster and voting it in. Because this is, and President Trump's right here. Again, I travel the country. If we don't do something with the filibuster and we don't get things passed, it'll be the last time we'll have a Republican president or a Republican Senate or a House. That's how fast this country is going down to communism. And we need to stop it. We can stop it. It's balls in our court. President Trump said that balls in your court. I'm here to support you. Let me know if there's anything I can do. But this is what we have to do to save the United States of America from communism. He's exactly right.
And I think that's the scary thing, is the contrast is being drawn, that this is a battle over communism in our own country.
Yikes.
So going all the way back to the beginning of the show, where Donald Trump talks about taking back our sovereignty. Whose sovereignty? The people's sovereignty. How? By controlling who governs us. And that's the theme of the Trump administration. And he's sticking to it. 17 months in, he's just tabled a housing bill, which should pass. I mean, it passed the House, passed the Senate. Usually the president signs these things right away. And he's saying, no, you're not going to get this legislative success.
He wants focus people.
Yeah, let's get the Save America Act fixed, and we can have Republicans in office forever. Otherwise, you're going to lose to these communists. They cheat. You can't win in a game where the winner is who cheats the most, because no one will hold each other accountable. All right, guys, we're going to jump over to private, and we are going to cover the fireworks. There are two senators who just recently lost their incumbency, right, and are going to be leaving the Senate at the end of the year.
Okay.
Who both had fireworks with the president. So we're going to be going over Cassidy and Cornyn and how they had it out with the president in this private meeting. So join us in private. We'll be recapping that. Don't forget to join us over at 1776live.us, and may as well take a visit to leftbehindwithout.org while you're at it. All right, guys, we'll see you in private in just a few seconds. Audio listeners,